leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Him Karsara, and on the show today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a 2.5-hour-long meeting in Jerusalem. Blinken has urged Netanyahu to end the conflict, capitalizing on the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar to secure the release of all hostages. Netanyahu has said that Sinwar's death would have a positive effect, but also mentioned that the assassination attempt against Netanyahu cannot be ignored. That being said, the question still remains: what happens going forward? We'll bring you all the latest developments on the show today.
Also on World DNA, the Indian Prime Minister and Chinese President will hold a bilateral meeting today in Kazan. This will be the first meeting between the leaders since both India and China agreed on non-hostile patrolling along the line of actual control. We'll bring you the latest from the ongoing BRICS summit in Russia. This and a lot more right here on World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping to hold bilateral meeting in Kazan today. First meeting between the leaders after both countries agreed on non-hostile patrolling along the line of actual control.
Israel confirms killing of Hashim Safieddin, presumed next leader of Hezbollah. Israeli military says Safieddin was killed in an airstrike on southern Beirut earlier in October.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken urges Israel's leaders to work towards a ceasefire in Gaza, presses Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow more aid into the besieged territory.
Ukraine's Prosecutor General Andrei Krostin resigns draft dodging scandal after dozens of his officials allegedly registered as disabled to avoid military service.
Taipei says it has detected Chinese aircraft carrier group sailing towards water separating Taiwan and China, a day after Beijing held live fire exercise near the island.
Justice Yahya Afridi nominated as next Chief Justice of Pakistan by the newly appointed Special Parliamentary Committee as Imran Khan's PTI boycotts discussions.
Dominic Thiem brings down the curtains on his career on home soil in Vienna with a loss against Luciano Darderi. The Austrian won the 2020 US Open title and also reached 3 Grand Slams final.
The Israeli military has said that it has killed Hashem Safiuddin, the top Hezbollah official who was widely expected to be the group's next leader.
Now, the IDF said that he was killed in a strike carried out 3 weeks ago in early October in Beirut's southern suburbs.
Now, around 25 other Hezbollah leaders were killed during the airstrike. This is the first confirmation of Safiuddin's death. There has been no immediate response from the Hezbollah group. Safiuddin was a powerful cleric within the party ranks. He was expected to succeed Hassan Nasrallah, who was also killed in an Israeli airstrike in September.
Safiuddin was a relative of Nasrallah. He assumed a prominent role speaking for Hezbollah during the last year of hostilities with Israel, addressing funerals and other events that Nasrallah had long been unable to attend for security reasons. Over the past months, Israeli strikes have killed much of Hezbollah's top leadership, leaving the group in disarray.
Israeli attacks on Lebanon are still ongoing. Fresh Israeli airstrikes have hit Beirut's southern suburbs, including a strike near Beirut's main government hospital. As per officials, at least 18 people have been killed, including 4 children and 60 others who have been wounded.
The Israeli military has said that their jets hit a Hezbollah target close to the Rafiq Hariri hospital, but emphasized that they did not target the hospital and it was not affected by the strike. Rescue workers continue to search through the rubble near the hospital.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu discussed ways to counter Iranian threats in his meeting with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Right, and this was during his visit to Tel Aviv. Netanyahu's office said that the threat from Iran and the need for both countries to join forces against it were raised during the talks. The Israeli Prime Minister welcomed the United States' support in its fight against Iran-aligned armed groups in the region.
According to reports, Netanyahu also told the US Secretary of State that the assassination attempt against him cannot be ignored after his house in Caesarea was targeted by the Hezbollah drone last week. Now, Iran figured in Blinken's meeting with the Israeli defense minister as well. Yoav Gallant told the US diplomat that his government expects Washington's support when it attacks Iran in response to a missile strike. It wasn't a missile strike, there were somewhere close to 200 missiles which were launched towards Israel on the 1st of October. Gallant said the US stance with Israel following its attack on Iran will strengthen regional deterrence and weaken the Iranian axis.
Now, during his 11th trip to the region since the war between Israel and Hamas erupted last year, Blinken also held talks with Netanyahu on post-war Gaza governance.
The Israeli Prime Minister expressed hope that the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar will have a positive impact on the return of the hostages held in Gaza for more than a year. The situation in Gaza came up for discussion during Blinken's meeting with the Israeli president as well. The leader said Sinwar's death has created a new opportunity to end the conflict.
Following the killing of Sinwar and the other circumstances that have evolved, there is a unique opportunity to make a special effort to employ all tools necessary and possible to move forward and bring the hostages back home.
I believe very much that the death of Sinwar does create an important opportunity to bring the hostages home, to bring the war to an end, and to ensure Israel's security.
Meanwhile, massive protests erupted outside Blinken's hotel in Tel Aviv as families of US-Israeli hostages in Gaza voiced their anger over stalled negotiations for the release of the captives. The demonstrators chanted slogans and displayed signs demanding to secure a deal.
Now that Sinwar is gone, we are hoping that the pressure from the United States is going to be immense on the parties, whether it's Qatar, Egypt, Israel, and of course Hamas, to finalize the deal and bring them home.
We are, according to the United States, waiting on Hamas to figure out what and who are the decision makers. I would act decisively, actively, proactively to get a deal on the table for Hamas to consider and put an end to all of this, including the suffering of the people in Gaza.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Adrian Kalmal. He's a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute, terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mr. Kalmal, the question is a ceasefire anywhere on the table? Do you think it'll come anywhere in the near future? Or do you think this is just face-saving at this point for the United States, of course, as the elections are approaching as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really think it's more of the latter. It's more face-saving. It's more of Blinken making another trip, his 11th trip, to try and make the point that we have some influence in this this protracted conflict, especially related to the hostages. And then I think we also need to take a step back with everybody talking about the death of Sinwar being an opening. We have to also remember that the Hamas has elected their whole new Politburo. They're sitting in Qatar. They're directing to Gaza. And ultimately, the decision may rest in Qatar, but ultimately the Islamic Republic. So we can continue to pressure Israel into making some type of deal, and proposals have been put on the table. Nothing post-Sinwar, so to speak. But I don't expect any movement, unfortunately.
Mr. Kalmal, as far as the hostilities between Israel and Iran are concerned, well, it's on the brink of only going further from here, because reports are suggesting that the IDF has completed preparations for a strike on Iran. US has doubled its interceptors for the THAAD systems, expecting an immediate response from the Iranian side. Iran-Israel, is the war certain now, or do you feel the two sides may just dull it down the way they did earlier in April in the year?
No, Shivan, great question. I don't expect it to dull down. Israel has to respond. They're going to respond, not just for the most recent rocket barrage that we saw was on October 1st, but you also have the attempt made on Netanyahu's life that was actually directed from Lebanon. And you
mentioned that it can't be ignored. So that again is...
No, it can't be ignored. Yes. It can't be ignored. And this is the first time that a head of state has been attempted to be taken out. We have to remember, Nasrallah is not a head of state. Sinwar is not a head of state. Hania was not a head of state. So something is coming. The U.S., they lack credibility, this administration, when it comes to the Islamic Republic and working with them. We've lost collective deterrence. They talk about working together. It's been Israel doing all the heavy lifting here. And there's some really concerning reports coming out of the United States where if I was Israel, I would not trust the United States and make sure not to reveal too much of what they plan on doing. There's a leaked memo coming out of the DOD. They've allowed Tehran to fuel their proxies over the last 4 years through unsanctioned oil sales, and they're still pursuing a nuclear agreement. So Israel is, they're going to act in their own interests. The U.S. THAAD systems, I want to point that out, the THAAD systems are really there to protect U.S. interests that we have on the ground there. It's not so much to protect Israel. So there's something coming. It's a question of What's it going to hit? Is it going to be the petrochemical industry? Is it going to be military targets? Is it going to be the oil industry? Is it going to be certain infrastructure? Or the nuclear facilities? That's the big one that everybody's asking about. So something.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in there. You mentioned something very interesting here, that US has positioned those THAAD systems there to protect its own interests and not Israeli interests. If you can elaborate further on that, because there were also reports that Israel was saying they didn't need US boots on Israeli soil. US has sent over 100 military boots there. They've sent their THAAD systems there. They've increased their interceptors there, and you're saying that they're protecting their own interests. What are these interests?
Well, if you look at where the THAAD is deployed, they're around in the Negev, for example. That's one area where they are deployed, and they're around where U.S. has certain. I can't go into too much detail, but they have certain interests, hardware interests, intelligence interests, that they don't want to be targeted inside. It's protecting our own interests within the country, within Israel.
Understood.
Mr. Kalman, also, of course, Israel has confirmed the death of Hashim Safieddin. There are reports that Naim Qassem has fled to Iran as well. Now, these military factions, they have not named their next head. Why do you think that is?
It's because, great question, Hima. It's because they've been completely thinned out. When you look at their structure, Naim Qassem really is the last notable figure that I see sitting up there. Now, he's much older than Nasrallah and the people that have been removed, but that's been part of the Israeli strategy, was to go from the bottom up and remove that Hezbollah structure so that they can't replace these positions, as opposed to a decapitation strike where you go after Nasrallah first. There's always someone that's going to come up and fill. So I think it's because they have a manpower problem and a leadership problem right now.
Mr. Kalman, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Always a good discussion when you're on the show. Adrian Cannibal, Fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute, Terrorism and Middle Eastern Scholar, joining us on World DNA. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Moving on then, Ukrainian Prosecutor General Andrei Kostin has announced his resignation after a probe by security services.
Well, the probe uncovered a large-scale corruption scheme that allegedly provided military draft exemptions for government officials.
Kostin's resignation, it comes shortly after President Zelensky held a meeting with senior officials about widespread abuse of the issuing of disability certificates to officials which allow them to avoid military service.
Now, Zelensky responded by issuing a decree for the current system of medical and social commissions that register people as disabled to be scrapped by the end of the year.
All of this needs to be dealt with thoroughly and promptly. The medical and social expert commission system should be eliminated. But for real and systemic changes, it is necessary to fully digitalize all stages of disability assessment process.
Now, this comes after US announced that the G7 allies are very close to finalizing a $50 billion loan package for Ukraine. This initiative, backed by frozen Russian assets, could see a US contribution of approximately $20 billion.
US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has expressed confidence that the Russian assets largely held in Europe will remain immobilized. She emphasized that the repayments would derive from the earnings on these Russian assets and not from US taxpayers. Meanwhile, tensions are escalating as South Korean intelligence has reported that North Korea has dispatched some 1,500 special operations troops to Russia.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has warned that up to 12,000 North Korean soldiers are preparing to join Russia in the ongoing conflict. In his address on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Zelensky also called on allies not to hide and respond to the evidence of North Korean involvement in the war.
Responding to the concerns, UK British Defence Secretary John Healey has said that it is highly likely that North Korea is sending troops to help Russia. The United States has also responded to the claims, saying that it marks a dangerous and a highly concerning development.
We are continuing to look into the reports that the DPRK has sent soldiers to fight alongside Russia. if it's true that DPRK soldiers are joining Putin's war against Ukraine, it certainly would mark a dangerous and highly concerning development as it relates to this.
The United Kingdom has also voiced concerns over Russia's recent attacks on the Black Sea ports. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has condemned these attacks, saying that they pose a threat to global food security. Now, viewers, over the past few months, Russia has been carrying out scheduled flights over the Sea of Japan.
In the latest, Russian Defense Ministry has said that two Tu-95M strategic bombers performed a scheduled flight over the neutral waters of the Sea of Japan. The ministry has said that the Tu-95S flew over for about 10 hours, escorted by the Su-30SM fighter jets.
Now, this is not the first time Russia has conducted flights over the Sea of Japan. Last month, Japan accused Russia of violating its airspace with a patrol plane.
Japanese fighter jets issued a warning to the Russian military over radio signal as well before firing flares at a Russian plane that had entered its airspace.
Now, the Japanese defense minister said that a Russian Il-38 patrol aircraft violated their airspace over the territorial waters. Now, in the same month, along with China, Russia conducted joint drills. The warships of Russia's Pacific Fleet and Chinese Navy entered Sea of Okhotsk in the Western Pacific as part of a joint Navy exercise. A combined squadron of warships from the Pacific Fleet and the Chinese Navy practiced maneuvers, formation of sailing orders, air defense tasks during these drills.
Apart from drills over the Sea of Japan, Russian military jets have been spotted near the US coast as well. 4 bombers which can carry nuclear weapons have been detected near Alaska. The Russian military has released the video showing the aircraft. It is said that the flight was carried out in accordance with international rules and that the bombers had been escorted by fighter jets.
The Russian bombers, Tu-95Ms, despite being old, are massively upgraded and continue to be employed in attacks against Ukraine. These are designed to fly a distance of about 5,000 miles. And the so-called Russian Bear bombers can strike targets within the United States from territory within the former Soviet Union. Now, the Tu-95 is equipped with 4 turboprop engines, NK-12. The high-power engines make it one of the loudest aircraft in the world. Originally developed as a bomber, the Tu-95 evolved into a missile carrier during modernizations.
Now, days after the Pakistan Parliament passed the 26th constitutional amendment, the country has a new Chief Justice.
Justice Yahya Afridi has been chosen for the top job. Late Tuesday night, a parliamentary committee narrowed down on the name during the second round of discussions before arriving at a consensus on Afridi's name. Only 8 out of 12 members named for the panel took part in the discussions.
The name will now be officially shared with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif as part of protocol.
We have appointed Justice Yahya Afridi as the new Chief Justice.
Justice Yahya Afridi was born on the 23rd of January back in 1965. He served as the company judge at the Peshawar High Court from 2013. Afridi will now be taking over the top job from incumbent Chief Justice of Pakistan, Qazi Faiz Isa, who is all set to retire on the 25th of October.
The parliamentary committee's decision did not come without challenges. Opposition party Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf had chosen to boycott the selection process as it continues to oppose the constitutional amendment.
Imran Khan's PTI, the largest bloc in parliament, has refused to back the package despite offers to water down the amendments and settle a consensus deal.
Unfortunately, no. We have actually taken principal decisions and we are of the view that all the constitutional amendments that have taken place, they were actually passed in unconstitutional manner after a huge harassment of our candidate, and we are not going to be part of this process. Therefore, the committee that were constitution pursuant to the constitutional amendment that were passed, therefore we have decided, it's the political committee of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, they decided last night that we are not going to be part of any process of this committee. Therefore, we have declined to participate.
The constitutional amendment paves the way for Pakistan's government to appoint judges, making this the biggest reversal for judicial independence in the country in 30 years. As per the new law, the next Chief Justice will be appointed for a term of 3 years.
A boat carrying around 140 Rohingya Muslims, mostly women and children, is stranded off the coast of Indonesia's northernmost province, Aceh.
Local residents have provided food and aid, but they've refused to allow the group to disembark.
Now, the boat has been anchored offshore since Friday. Following a 2-week journey from Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, 3 passengers have died during the trip. And local authorities have evacuated 11 people to a hospital due to worsening health conditions. The group, originally of 216 people, left Bangladesh on the 9th of October, intending to reach Malaysia. However, 50 passengers reportedly disembarked earlier in Indonesia's Riau province. Some people reportedly paid to be transported to other countries, and the local residents said that no one has agreed to take responsibility for the group.
It's not because we don't allow it, but because until now there has been no agreement from other parties. So if they are allowed to disembark, no one is responsible for guaranteeing them.
Police have arrested 3 individuals suspected of people smuggling connected to this case. The Rohingya are a persecuted minority with over 1 million living as refugees in Bangladesh. Most fled violence in Myanmar, including a brutal military crackdown in 2017. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Of course, Hem and I will be back with you after this short break. On the other side, the Indian Prime Minister and Chinese President will hold bilateral talks today. This is at the 16th edition of the BRICS Summit in Russia's southwestern city of Kazan. We'll bring you all to expect from this meeting.
India and Pakistan have mutually agreed to extend the Kartarpur Sahib Corridor Agreement by 5 years, ensure uninterrupted travel for Indian pilgrims to the holy Gurdwara located in Pakistan. Stay tuned for all the details.
Besieged, Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is ousted by the Senate, as senators approve country's Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as the new DP. Gachagua blames his troubles on his now former running mate and President William Ruto, calling him a vicious man. Lawyer for a prominent Mozambique opposition figure, Venancio Mondlane, is shot and killed in the capital Maputo weeks after the country's general elections. Election watchdog claimed the killings were designed to intimidate anyone demanding transparency in the polls. And Ivory Coast sees a boom in nurseries as the West African nation's women increasingly go out to work. There are now 254 private creches and nurseries across Abidjan. World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
I think bringing perspectives from journeys of various entrepreneurs or business leaders will allow, aspiring young entrepreneurs as well as, people who track businesses to get a better understanding of the stories behind the creation of these businesses, as well as the philosophy and the perspective that these business leaders have.
The US race to power, marked by high-octane campaign rallies, life-threatening encounters, game-changing presidential debates, the color and the drama, the key defining moments, deep insights and informed analysis. Watch continuous coverage of the US presidential elections 2024 on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with him and I'm Shivan. Lots to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's start you off with the headlines.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken urges Israel's leaders to work towards a ceasefire in Gaza on Tuesday. Presses Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow more aid into the besieged territory.
Israel confirms the killing of Hashem Safieddin, the man presumed to be the next leader of Hezbollah after Hassan Nasrallah. Israeli military says Safieddin was killed in an airstrike on southern Beirut earlier in October.
Ukraine's Prosecutor General Andrei Kostin resigns over draft dodging scandal after dozens of his officials allegedly registered as disabled to avoid military service.
Taipei says it has detected Chinese aircraft carrier group sailing towards waters separating Taiwan and China, the day after Beijing held a live fire exercise near the island.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping to hold bilateral meeting in Kazan today. First meeting between the leaders after both countries agreed on non-hostile patrolling along the LAC.
Justice Yahya Afridi nominated as the next Chief Justice of Pakistan by the newly appointed Special Parliamentary Committee as Imran Khan's PTI boycotts discussions.
Now, global leaders, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin ahead of the BRICS summit.
The 16th edition of the BRICS summit is being hosted in Russia's southwestern city of Kazan. The Indian Prime Minister and Chinese President will hold a bilateral talk today. That's a highly anticipated meeting. And this will be the first meeting between the two leaders since both India and China agreed on non-hostile patrolling along the LAC.
Foreign Secretary of India Vikram Misri confirmed this development to WION Sibbal. Listen to this.
Siddhant from WION. Sir, any possibility of a bilateral between the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President, given that there is a certain level of thaw with the agreement on patrolling?
I can confirm that there will be a bilateral meeting held between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping tomorrow, 23rd of October, on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. The exact time and other logistics are being worked out, but the meeting will take place tomorrow.
Amid the escalating tensions in West Asia, Prime Minister Modi held bilateral talks with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. Both the leaders raised concerns over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. They called for a ceasefire in the Palestinian enclave.
Prime Minister Modi and President Putin held bilateral talks after the duo greeted and hugged each other. Referring to the Russia-Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi reiterated his message on a ceasefire, saying that India believes in peaceful solutions to conflicts. This is Indian Prime Minister's second visit to Russia in the last 3 months.
एक्सेलेंसी, रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय पर हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। शांति और स्थिरता की जल्द से जल्द बहाली का हम पूरी तरह समर्थन करते हैं।
The bonhomie between India and Russia was on full display during this crucial meeting. The duo shared a light moment as well when President Putin joked that he and Prime Minister Modi can understand each other even without any kind of translation.
As a special honor, Russian fighter jets escorted the incoming planes of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping before they landed in Kazan for the summit.
As Russia hosts the 16th edition of the BRICS summit, it wants to showcase the rising clout of the non-Western world. For President Putin, the three-day meeting also offers a powerful way to demonstrate the failure of US-led efforts to isolate Russia over its actions in Ukraine. As many as 22 heads of state and 6 heads of international organizations are expected to attend this event.
Now, Kremlin has touted the summit as the largest foreign policy event ever held by Russia, with 36 countries attending and more than 20 of them represented by heads of state.
The BRICS does not count the
And WION's assistant editor for foreign affairs, Sibbal, sends us this report. Listen to this.
Later today, we will see the BRICS summit. The BRICS summit will focus on alternative payments mechanism, which will be non-Western. We will also see the expansion of the grouping in terms of formation of a new category of the expansion membership that will basically see not full membership, but countries being part of BRICS initiative. But for Russia, it's an occasion to tell the world, especially the West, it is not isolated. With the presence of almost 20 world leaders, it showcases that how basically Russia is increasing its engagement with the global South and countries of Asia.
India and Pakistan have mutually agreed to extend the Kartarpur Sahib corridor agreement by 5 years.
And this deal aims to ensure uninterrupted travel for Indian pilgrims to the Holy Gurdwara located in Pakistan.
Now, sharing the news of the Kartarpur corridor agreement's renewal on social media, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar stated that the Modi government will continue to facilitate our Sikh communities' access to their holy sites. According to a statement issued by the Ministry of External Affairs on Tuesday, India has urged Pakistan to waive off any fee or charges for Indian nationals using the Kartarpur corridor. This request follows ongoing appeals from pilgrims for the removal of the $20 service charge imposed by Pakistan for each visit.
According to reports, more than 1 lakh Indian nationals and holders of overseas citizens or overseas citizens of India card holders have utilized the Kartarpur corridor since its inauguration in November 2019 to visit Gurdwara Darbar Sahib. The extension of the agreement for another 5 years ensures that this vital link remains operational.
Now, the agreement fulfilled the long-standing demand of Indian citizens, ensuring smooth access to the Gurdwara and the corridor that was opened on the occasion of the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak. The announcement of the renewal comes shortly after Dr. S. Jaishankar visited Pakistan for the SCO meet. It was the first such visit by an Indian foreign minister in 9 years.
Now, the depression over Bay of Bengal is likely to intensify into a severe cyclonic storm.
Cyclone Dana is expected to make landfall on the states of Odisha and West Bengal on Thursday. Now, the West Bengal government has ramped up precautions as the state braces for this cyclone.
Now, according to the India Met Department, the depression is likely to intensify into a severe cyclonic storm over northwest Bay of Bengal and cross North Odisha and West Bengal coast with a wind speed of 100 and 110 kilometers per hour.
Extremely heavy rainfall is expected in the coastal regions. Tourists and pilgrims who frequent the coastal city of Puri have been asked to leave while rescue teams are on standby. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has said that her government is fully prepared to handle the effects of the cyclone. The Chief Minister said 24/7 control rooms have also been set up at both the district and the state levels, and principal secretaries of various government departments have been posted across districts to monitor the situation.
Mamata Banerjee also said ferry service will remain non-operational in coastal areas until the situation returns to normal. Those residing in low-lying areas are being evacuated to safer locations. Further academic activities have been suspended in the state ahead of the storm. State-run schools in multiple districts, including capital Kolkata, will remain shut till Saturday.
Chinese automaker BYD is zipping ahead in the global race to make cheaper electric vehicles.
While the United States is trying everything it can to keep the rising brand out of the market, BYD is flooding global markets with its EVs. Take a look at this next report for more on this.
BYD is currently exporting to about 95 regions, including 20 new ones this year. This comes after the company grew its yearly sales in China by 15 times to 3 million cars in only 3 years. The business is now constructing, has already built, or has plans to create assembly factories outside of China in 10 nations across 3 continents. The global car industry was unprepared for the pace and extent of this expansion, which has led to protectionist levies in the US and the EU. Policymakers there fear Chinese players such as BYD will hurt their domestic automakers. In the words of Elon Musk, Chinese automakers will demolish local manufacturers. BYD, an acronym for Build Your Dreams, was created by 58-year-old battery scientist Wang Xuanfu. He saw a chance to launch a rechargeable battery business in the 1990s to break Japan's monopoly on the market. Led by China's EV-friendly policies and the size of its domestic auto market, BYD has been successful after turning to EVs. The company's advancements in battery and manufacturing technology made it accomplish what Tesla, Ford Motor Company, and the rest of the auto industry have not: create an electric car that is both affordable and profitable. BYD's strategy is similar to that of Hyundai Motor Company and Toyota Motor, which emerged from the post-war industrialization of Korea and Japan. They first exported for years before establishing facilities abroad. Similar to them, BYD began the low-cost automobiles before moving up the scale by utilizing more effective production, cheaper prices, and a robust industrial policy. Bipartisan anti-Chinese attitude in Washington has echoes of the 1980s Japan Inc. frenzy. Back then, the US feared losing its position as an economic powerhouse. That is a challenge for BYD as it expands internationally. Beyond geopolitics, the company wants to get global recognition for its efforts just trying to sell cars and fight climate change. Business Report, WION, World is One. As the earnings season in Europe and the US takes hold, former US President Donald Trump's promise of global tariffs is complicating the outlook for earnings.
European business executives are more concerned about Trump's pledge to impose tariffs than their US counterparts. Take a look at this report for more on this.
If Trump takes the White House again, global tariffs become a reality. Tariff mentions on earnings conference calls have increased dramatically in Europe, surpassing those on US calls by a ratio of 5-2 in October. The descriptions are overwhelmingly negative. The lack of clarity weighs on earnings projections. Volvo Cars CEO said trade taxes make the company's earnings forecast more difficult. There's good reason for all the distress over a word the Republican candidate has declared beautiful and his favorite in the dictionary. Rajiv De Mello, Chief Investment Officer at Gamma Asset Management, told Bloomberg, if tariff threats come in hard and fast and Europe retaliates with its own counter-tariffs, we will look back at the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act passed in the 1930s, which worsened the Great Depression. He added that would be very negative for European equities. The United States is by far the biggest trading partner of the European Union, with $952 billion in total commerce last year. Wall Street analysts fear any retaliatory tariffs on the US will be inflationary and weigh on economic growth. This year, European equities are trailing significantly behind Wall Street stocks. The earnings season is off to a rocky start, and Trump's possible comeback would just add to the risks. Emmanuel Kaur, Barclays strategist, noted that a big chunk of consensus forecasts of more than 10% growth in earnings next year could be wiped out by a spat over levies on trade. According to the Barclays team, Germany and Italy look most at risk. Among sectors, capital goods, automobiles, beverages, technology and chemicals face the greatest threat. A tariff onslaught is the last thing the already struggling auto sector in Europe needs right now. Business Report, WION, World is One.
Let's now take a look at developments from the world of technology. A new federal rule in the United States that bans fake online reviews is now in effect. Issued by the Federal Trade Commission or FTC in August, the rule targets businesses that buy or sell fraudulent reviews. The rule went into effect on Monday, enabling the FTC to impose civil penalties on violators. FTC Chair Lina Khan has emphasized the need for the rule, saying fake reviews not only mislead consumers but also harm honest businesses. The ban specifically targets fake reviews attributed to non-existent people, those created by AI or individuals who haven't used the product or service. It also penalizes companies that sell or generate false testimonials, as well as those making threats or false accusations to silence critics.
A group of bipartisan US senators are urging President Biden to review the security of undersea communication cables, which carry nearly all of the world's internet traffic. The senators, led by Republican Todd Young and Democrat Chris Murphy, have expressed concern over potential sabotage by Russia and the growing influence of China in laying and maintaining these cables. These cables, which are crucial for global connectivity, are often mapped publicly to avoid accidental damage. The US has long raised concerns about China's role in global network infrastructure due to potential espionage risks. Back in 2020, regulators had stopped 4 cable projects that would have linked the US with Hong Kong, citing security concerns.
A recent study has revealed that AI-powered models can accurately diagnose infectious eye conditions such as keratitis, matching the skills of eye care specialists. Keratitis is a major contributor to corneal blindness, globally leading to approximately 5 million cases of blindness each year, especially in low and middle-income countries. Conducted by the University of Birmingham, the researchers highlighted the potential of AI models to benefit regions with limited access to specialist eye care. The AI was effective in distinguishing between healthy eyes, infected cornea, and various causes of keratitis, including bacterial and fungal infections. However, researchers urged caution in interpreting the results, noting that the image-based analysis did not consider individual correlations.